Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, and score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello and welcome back. Yes, we are back for a new season of Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name's Euan and today I'm joined by Broonie. Bonjour, Broonie.
Hi Euan, how are we doing? Delighted to be back for a new season. Be sticking around for the next couple of months to watch Livingston and looking forward to the upcoming cup games. But no, I'm very well, mate. What about yourself?
Well, good, mate. I had a couple of trips to Dublin. Obviously, Scotland games weren't very great over the international break, but the trips to Dublin were very good. But you have a bit of news to share with folk.
Yeah, I do. For those that might have seen, I've recently accepted a role with BN Sports. So I'll be moving over to Paris in France to take up role as a journalist and a commentator there. So yeah, I'm very excited, but I'm still with Livingston just now for the next couple of months. So that doesn't start for a wee while, but no, yeah, excited to start that, of course, but obviously I'll be gutted to be leaving the club.
Well, I'll speak on behalf of Angus as well. I'm sure he'll echo my thoughts that we're fucking delighted to get rid of you. No, on a serious note, Bruni, absolutely delighted for you. I know it's a passion of yours and it's something you've wanted to do, so we're obviously absolutely buzzing for you, but I'm sure you'll make the odd guest appearance here and there all the way from France. We're not coming over unless you're paying for our accommodation. That's but as always, you can find this episode as well as all our other episodes on your preferred podcast streaming site. Just search for Talk Livi, so follow us or subscribe to ensure that you don't miss another episode.
We'll start this episode off with a transfer roundup as we discuss the comings and goings so far at the Tony Macaroni Arena.
Next up, we'll discuss the talking points from our pre-season games and what's been a bit of a mixed bag for the Lions.
And finally, we'll look ahead to our Premier Sports Cup group as the Lions return to action with a trip to Albion Rovers before taking on Inverness and West Lothian next Tuesday.
As is the case every summer, the transfer window is in full swing and Davy Martindale has been busy as usual. What we'll do first of all, we'll talk new arrivals. That's the bit that everyone gets excited about, is new players coming into the club, but it's safe to say a few of them are a bit of an unknown quantity. I know you've done a little bit of research on a couple of them. You've listened to a couple of podcasts, Bruni, but the couple I'll go with to start off with are probably more known to Scottish football fans, and Jamie Brandon coming from Hearts. Right back who can play a wee bit further forward as well, and then Ismail Goncalves, who had previous spells at St Mirren, won the League Cup at St Mirren and had a spell at Hearts as well, but he's joined from Sheikh Russell in Bangladesh. I'm sure we all keep tabs on Sheikh Russell on a regular basis. So Bruni, what's your thoughts? Those ones, as I say, a bit more known to fans in Scottish football.
Well, he's come from Sheikh Russell, but if he's any good as Ian Russell, then I think he'll go down well with the fans. But
I'll take that.
He might need to shift a few pounds first. But I mean, that's what I've heard kind of from fans and things. Obviously, I've been at the two games. He does look a little bit heavy, but Isma looks like he's got quality. As we say, he's proven in Scottish football. He came first of all to St Mirren, and he did fairly well there. I think he was a wee bit of a cult hero there. I think he won the League Cup with them. It's obviously a fantastic achievement, and then fairly decent record at Hearts as well. I think 1-3 he averaged in terms of goals there. Yeah, I think he's just kind of, he's been jobbing around a wee bit the last few years since leaving Hearts. He's been, the likes of Bangladesh, I saw Japan, Thailand, I think, countries like that,
I think he was actually at the same Japanese club as Maeda, who's now at Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was there at the same time as him. So there's another random link for you there.
Yeah. So, I mean, who knows really what to expect? Davies obviously got the best out of players before. Hopefully, I kind of see it as a wee bit of a project signing, because obviously he's got the ability, but it's just whether he can, get up to speed. And with Bruce Anderson maybe out just now, I know he's not featured in the last couple of friendlies. I'm not sure on length of another injury potentially, but kind of need him to get up to speed fairly quickly, because without Bruce, I think we saw Jack Hamilton pull up in another friendly. We could be maybe struggling for a number 9 at this early stage, but who knows? As I say, it's early days. He's probably a wee bit more unproven than Jamie Brandon, who we obviously know a bit more about. Was a youngster at Hearts coming through. I think he had a few injury problems, but he looks a fairly solid signing. I imagine he'll probably deputise for Nicky Devlin. He spent last year out on loan at Morton, and did fairly well. Did all right in their revival under Dougie Imrie, which they obviously stayed up. Yeah, I don't really know what to expect from any of the signings, really. I think that's kind of the beauty of it, or maybe you would say the fear of it. Who knows? Maybe we need 1 or 2 more, which I'm sure we'll potentially get onto. But Euan, looking at the likes of some of the new guys as well, who we've kind of seen in the friendlies, and Scott Basindu and Phil Cankar, they're probably more unknown quantities.
Cankar, certainly, we got a couple of tweets in response to when we signed him on the podcast account from guys over in Sydney, where he'd been based at Western Sydney Wanderers before. I think that's the same club Graham Dorrans was at when he went over to Australia as well. So good chance that he's probably played with Graham. But certainly the reviews of him were all very good. I know you said there was a bit of a segment on the Terrace podcast about him, which all seemed pretty positive, and maybe the sort of centre-half we're looking for a little bit, with us trying to play a little bit more progressive and expansive coming out from the back. So he might be the type of centre-half that fits into where we're looking to go in terms of style. Scott Basindu's come over from Belgium, Liège he's joined from. I believe he used to play with Stefano Mionga at some point in his career, so there's obviously a bit of a connection there. He's been capped for Congo, which, international football, at the end of the day, it's international football. And I think what I've noticed with the theme of the signings, I think Davies done exactly what he was planning to do, which was bring in a bit more physicality and height. And if you haven't seen him in the flesh, Scott Basindu is a big boy, a very, very athletic guy. He played centre-half in the game against Linlithgow Rose, but I think he's predominantly a kind of sitting midfield player. So I could see him maybe doing an almost Marvin Bartley type role in there. The other one we haven't mentioned, who's not confirmed yet, but has played in the friendlies, is Dylan Bambula, who's come up from Oldham. I think it's just a matter of time, and a case of crossing the T's, dotting the I's type scenario with him signing that off. But again, he looked pretty promising in the friendly against Morton, and again, big lad, over 6 foot. So I think Davies certainly addressed areas which he was planning to do. To touch on Goncalves and Brandon, I think Jamie Brandon strikes me as a very Livingston signing, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I think the little snippets I've seen of him, I think he'll fit in, and the fans will take to him. Probably he seems like a grafter, puts everything out there. And as you say, you mentioned Goncalves being a bit of a project. I think Brandon with 3-year deals maybe a bit of a project for Davy as well. And it's again that giving him that opportunity to go and play Premiership football in Scotland. I think when we go talk about the guys that have left the club, even on loan, there seems to be a common theme with Dougie Imrie and the connection that he has with Davy, having been at the club last year. So there's a few comings and goings that have a Morton connection, and Jamie Brandon's one of them. Goncalves, as you say, he's got experience in Scottish football, but he does need to get up to speed. But I'll use as an example Sean Kelly when he joined us last year. I wouldn't have said Sean was probably in his prime physical condition, and then you saw him at the tail end of the season. He's absolutely ripped now, and he's really trimmed down. And I have no doubts that Davey and the coaching staff at the club will get Goncalves up to speed. It's a case of whether Ismail wants to do that and buys into that. And I read an interview with him in the Scotsman, and he seems to have taken to it. He's moving his family across to Livingston, and he seems to like Davey's attitude of, I will work you today, not if you work hard, you play. If you don't, you don't. Davey wants him to work hard, and that is the philosophy at this football club. So he won't get away with it if he's not willing to put in the graft. So, but certainly talking about the other signings, I know you did a bit of research on Philip Kinkar.
Yeah, I spoke to both Phil Cankar and Scott Basindu, obviously, when they'd signed in the pre-contracts. I think that was just towards the end of May. I'd spoken to them, and they're both obviously really excited to get going. They're both here. I'm not sure what will happen with Scott Basindu. I think there's maybe a paperwork thing with that, but I mean, I could be wrong with that. Just because he's had to be named as a trialist at the moment. Same with Cankar, but he's now officially signed Cankar, so he'll be available for Saturday. I'm not sure about Basindu as of yet, but yeah. So I was listening to the Terrace, and they were bigging him up in terms of his ball playing stats. From out of the back, I don't have them to hand, unfortunately. But from what I saw in the couple of friendly matches, he looks like he'll progress the ball well, coming out from the back. We saw him step forward a good few times. I think he could be a good partnership with Jack Fitzwater. Obviously, got Parks and Boys out at the minute, and Ayo Obilai obviously didn't cover himself in glory at the Morton friendly.
I'm sure we'll touch on that.
we could potentially see Cankar and Fitzwater on Saturday, but again, I'm not sure. Maybe Davey brings Ayo back in, but I quite like the look of him. And as you said, when the signing was announced, the fans from down under, shall we say, were very, very complimentary of him, very positive about him. And Scott Basindu, just again, he strikes me as a bit of like a Dolly Menga signing or a Steve Lawson signing, where we've tried to go into that market. It's worked for us in the past, not massively successfully, but I think he looks all right. Again, he looks very physical and really add that presence to the midfield. Going forward and attacking set pieces as well. Obviously, very, very early days, but I think Cankar, obviously, I think he's 20 or 21, both very, very young. Cankar, very, very young. Basindu, I think 24, 25 as well. So, again, scope for them to improve, both on 2 to 3 year deals as well. So, Cankar, for me, out of all of those, is the one that stands out. I don't really have a reason for that. I just think, I like the look of him as a player from what I've seen in the little snippets, and hopefully he's one that goes on to become a next Halkett, a next Fitzwater, a next Guthrie, guys like that we've produced at centre half.
Yeah, there's also a few players that have been tied down to longer deals over the course of the summer. Sean Kelly, we mentioned, obviously had a really good finish to the season playing centre midfield, and I'm quite excited to see what Sean can bring to the team this season in that position. He's signed I think it was a 2-year extension. Jack Hamilton has signed for another 2 years as well. I think there was a bit of to and fro over that one. Big season for Jack. I think he really, really needs to take his opportunities this year. He's gone out on various loan spells. He's been successful when he was at East Fife, when he was at Berwick, when he's been at both spells at Arbroath, he's been very successful. So you're really, really wanting, I think every Livingston fan is desperate for Jack to burst into the team and start doing what he can do, which is score goals. And we're really hoping he can do that at Premiership level. And the other one's Tom Parks, albeit nothing confirmed that I've seen. Is it a 1-year deal he's signed, Broonie? Thank you for that. So yeah, 1-year deal, but he's obviously going to be a little bit away because I've seen he's got a brace on after he had a tidy up on his knee. So it'll be a wee while before we see Tom back in action. But there's another one, and he certainly made an impact the other night. He's coming back. He's a bit of almost feels like a new signing, having been away. you spoke to him after the game. It's Postman Pat. It's Josh Mullen. He's back to do his deliveries in West Lothian.
Yeah, no, I'm excited that Josh has come back. I think he said himself last night he probably should have stayed around to fight for his place last season. You know, when we look back to the season before last, obviously the COVID season as it's dubbed, you know, when fans went back, Josh Mullen was fairly good for us. I mean, again, I don't have the stats to hand, but especially in that League Cup run, Josh was very good. He obviously played in the final, but I think just looking at last night as well, he's put in a few brilliant deliveries from corners. He obviously set up Christian Montano's goal. He got 3 himself, so he's not done his chances of getting in the team any harm. And just going back to Sean Kelly as well, Sean Kelly is somebody that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I think if you just look at his figure, he looks absolutely terrific now. He looks one of the fittest players in the team. You know, I think he admitted himself he wasn't at his, as you mentioned, his peak physical condition. I've spoken to him a lot over last season, and I think he put it down to, you know, obviously COVID would have played a part, but I think he'd maybe played 7 games or something in a season with Ross County. Then he went to Falkirk and played again 7 or 8 games. So he was probably short on that match fitness, and Davey took a chance on him. Again, probably knows him through Liam Kelly, who we had, his brother. And yeah, Davey's taken a chance on him. Was all right at left back, I think, in a few games, particularly up at Ross County away last season, putting a terrific ball for Bruce Anderson, I think it was. But I think credit to the manager for playing him in this kind of number 6 role now, just as the anchor between the centre halves and the central midfielders. He slots in there brilliantly. And again, I know you're not looking at Linlithgow Rose as an opponent that he's not going to be playing every week against, but some of the passes he was pulling off, for me, it's one of those players that's very aesthetically pleasing to watch. I think his technique's incredible. He hit a volley in the second half that looked destined that was going to go in, but it was blocked. Obviously, that led to Isma scoring a screamer, to be fair to him. But yeah, Sean Kelly's one that does excite me. Maybe if he continues to play that number 6 role, obviously Davies identified he's got the attributes for that. And for me, he's got his fitness up. So, you know, there's no reason why not. Obviously, we'll need to battle with the likes of Pittman, Jason Holt, Stefan Omayonga, Scott Basindu as well. You know, we're very strong in the midfield area.
I think, you know, just touching on the guys that we've got in centre mid, Bruni, I think what Sean gives you is that something a little bit different in that area. In terms of, as you mentioned, like his range of passing's very good. It reminds me of a young Italian boy called Andrea Pirlo. Some of the passes that he pulls off in that kind of anchor role. And as I say, he offers you that little bit of variety, I think, in the middle of the park, which, you know, this is no disrespect to the likes of Pitts, Omiyonga and Holt, but kind of similar in a lot of ways, the 3 of them, while Sean maybe gives you something just that little bit different to what the 3 of them do, for example.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. He's just somebody that excites me. I really like the story. Kind of, there's not a massive storyline behind it, but you know, the fact that nobody really looked at Sean Kelly when he signed, oh, this is an incredible signing. People looked at him as maybe a second or a third choice left back, and now, you know, especially towards the end of the season, he was a very big part in the turn of form. Obviously, he played against Motherwell. He was, for me, one of the best players on the park. We don't talk about the result in that game, and obviously the games after the split, technically 6 unbeaten, you know, from that Motherwell game, and then the final 5 games of the season. So, yeah, for me, I'm looking forward to seeing him, and he's more than earned the deal. And as I say, he's obviously got himself in the gym. He's obviously very, very motivated, and I think he's got a good understanding with the manager. And yeah, he looks, the biggest compliment I can pay him is obviously he's played left back for pretty much all his career, but he doesn't look out of place whatsoever in the midfield, which again, a credit to him. But no, I'm looking forward to seeing the new guys in action more. Maybe add 1 or 2 more. Obviously, you mentioned Bahambula. I think Davey said last night he's looking at 1 or 2 more. I'm not sure if he was included in that. But just in terms of outgoings now, Euan, I think we'll maybe start with probably the most obvious, which is Alan Forrest. Obviously, he's now gone to Hearts. That's been confirmed. It was, rumoured for a very long while. He's hit the ground running there, as Angus has been updating us with. He's scoring a lot on friendlies.
Yeah, Angus has actually given up his Livi season ticket, and he's just joined the foundation of Hearts to back Alan this season. No, it's disappointing to lose Alan, and I think he's going to be very difficult to replace in terms of, if you look at the numbers for players in terms of goals last year and assists and things like that. Bruce got 13, and I think he was 4 assists on top of that. Alan was 7 goals, 5 assists, and I think the season before he hit double figures for goals, albeit a few of them were in the League Cup. It's trying to get other players to chip in with the goals that Alan does, I think, is maybe my little concern. I wouldn't be over the top in that because I've not seen enough of the guys that are coming in the door to pass proper judgment on that. But no, it's a good move for Alan. I think the set up the Hearts play with almost those 2 inverted 10s, I think could really suit him. Playing in that position, he's got the opportunity to play European football at a big club in Scotland, and you can't deny the lad he's moved, and he's over his 2 seasons at Livingston, he's earned that opportunity. So I have to say, wish him the best luck. Obviously not against ourselves. Hope he has an absolute stinker when he comes back to Tony Mac or when we play him at Tynecastle. But no, wish Alan all the best. By all accounts, very, very nice lad, and as I say, I hope he's very successful at Tynecastle.
Absolutely. Alan's a great guy, and he was very good for us. I think that a lot of people said, which for me I don't buy, is that he turned it on, in the transfer windows to get a move. I don't buy that. Not for me. I felt he was obviously inconsistent at times, but it was turned out to be a great signing on a free transfer from Ayr United. Obviously, we'd all have loved to have made some money off of that, but it wasn't to be. And yeah, as Euan says, wish him all the best at Hearts. I think he'll be a very good signing for Hearts. Maybe won't play every week. He's not going to be guaranteed game time, probably like he was at Livingston. But he's one that maybe you're looking at the squad now as, have we replaced him? Again, I think time will tell on that. As you said, we've got the likes of Goncalves coming in, potentially Bahambula, and the guys that are already here. It could be a big season for Joel Newbley. So obviously for me, he's been fantastic since he returned from Arbroath in January, but maybe needs to start adding goals to his game. But again, just touching on some more departures. Craig Sibbald is away, Jack McMillan, Keegan Jacobs, obviously a club legend. 3 guys that have been fantastic for Livingston. Jack McMillan, of course, involved in the playoffs as well. Been a bit of a bit part player for us, maybe time for him, the correct time for him to leave. I think he said that himself, to go out and get that game time. And Craig Sibbald as well was a tough one for him last year. Sibbald is probably a player I'd maybe held on to. I think there's definitely a real quality player in there. We saw that at Falkirk. I'm not sure if he's found the team yet. I don't think he has.
There's been a few different rumours going about with Sibs. I've heard Dunfermline mentioned, I've heard Falkirk mentioned, I've heard Queen's Park mentioned with him. So I think there's a number of clubs interested. I'm genuinely surprised that a bottom half Premiership team hasn't taken a punt on Sibs, to be honest, because he's more than capable of playing at that level. He's proved that prior to last season, and probably the start of the season, he was one of our brighter players. But the 18 months of form that he had, kind of halfway through our second season back up when he played in a holding role with Marvin Bartley, and then the following campaign, Sibs was arguably our most consistent player for 18 months. He was excellent. So I am disappointed to see Craig go. Likewise with Jack McMillan, I've got nothing but positive things to say about Jack McMillan, but we could be selfish as a club and try and keep a hold of them and still not offer them the game time I think they deserve.
Yeah.
And I think for them at their age, Jack in particular, I would probably say they need to go out and play regularly. And I think Jack's made a very good move to Partick Thistle. He's obviously knows the club. He's been there before, had a loan spell from ourselves there. So I wish Jack and Craig, wherever Craig ends up, the best of luck. Because, as I said, they're 2 very, very good footballers that deserve to be playing week in, week out. And if they're not able to do that here, then I think it's And I think the manager, I think Davey's very fair with that. If they can get the opportunity to go and play regularly elsewhere, he's not going to stand in their way, and he hasn't done that, which is kudos to Davey as well. So wish them the best of luck, certainly, wherever Sibs ends up as well. But another player, I mean, you can't not mention it, is the fact that we've now got another reason to love Arbroath, which is Keegan Jacobs is now at Arbroath working with the legend that is Dick Campbell. I mean, I gave quite an emotional farewell to Keegan on the podcast and at Player of the Year. But Broonie, he's a legend, isn't he? There's no other way to describe Keegan.
He is, mate. He is. He's Mr. Livingston. He's probably, especially for guys my age, from growing up, from going to watch Livingston, there's never really been a time where Keegan Jacobs hasn't been there. It feels very weird not seeing him around the club. I'll be honest with that. Yeah, Keegan's just been there since I can remember. He's been a terrific servant to Livingston. I don't know. It's kind of hard to sum up his time at Livingston, because he's been there through it all, really, through the demotion, the administration, the promotions, the relegation again, the playoffs. Who can forget the playoffs? There's a day named Keegan Jacobs Day. It's kind of named after him, that goal at Partick Thistle.
It's Keegan Jacobs Day in secondary is my dad's birthday.
No, he's terrific, and I'm sure he'll do a good job at Arbroath. Maybe again, that's a one where it's maybe the right time. Again, if you look at Sybil and McMillan, probably weren't getting the game time. Similar with Keegan, he was obviously loaned out last season, so maybe it's best for both parties. As sad as that ending is to his time at the club, we obviously saw him get a testimonial as well. In the service he's given Livingston, it's very, very rare, especially modern football nowadays, for one guy who's come through an academy. Obviously, he did move on for the odd 6 months to a year. I think he went back to South Africa, but we'll forget about that. We'll forgive him. 14, 15 years of service to the club, very, very rare, and obviously, again, wish him all the best. It will be very odd not seeing him around.
Yeah, it's strange to think of Keegan playing in another jersey, but as you say, it's probably the right time for Keegs. Again, touching on that with Sibs and Jack McMillan, it's he didn't play a great deal last year. I mean, Keegan could easily, I reckon, hit 400, 450 appearances if it wasn't for some of the injuries that he's had at Livingston, because most of the time they tend to be quite serious ones. He doesn't just have a wee niggle here or there. He's had, I think, 2 leg breaks, a cruciate, then this foot injury that he had during the COVID season. So he's had some rotten luck with injuries. So to get the number of appearances, 309, I think it is, for the football club is exceptional. But I think it's a very good move for him, going to the top part-time team in the Championship, who are off the back of an incredible season, finishing second and reaching the playoffs. And he's maybe moving to part-time football might suit Keegan because of the injuries that he's had. It might help him a little bit prolong his playing career. So, and he's with a incredibly charismatic, and I think Dick's probably cut from the same cloth as Davey a little bit. Very, so I think he'll get on like a house on fire up there with Dick Campbell, and we've got a reason to continue our love affair with Arbroath as our feeder team with Keegan going there. But there's another couple of players who have moved on. To be honest, just didn't really work out for him at the football club. Matej Preplatnik, don't think he's found a club yet. From what I've seen, Gavin Riley's gone back to Queen of the South, where his career started, which I think is probably quite a good move for him. Almost a bit of a reset. I think he did pretty decent at Morton by all accounts when he went there on loan last year, but I think that'll be a good move for him. And then we've got a trio of players that have ended up at Morton in some shape or form. Carlo Pignatiello has gone there permanently, and then Brian Schwake's gone there on loan, who had a fantastic promotion, topped off with promotion in the playoffs campaign with Edinburgh City last year, or FC Edinburgh United City Athletic. I don't know what they're called now, but and I think Jay's Cabia is away there as well. He certainly played as a trialist in the friendly, so wish them the best of luck. But that's clearly the Dougie Imrie connection, isn't it, with those players going there? And I think it's a very good move for both players, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I would agree. Starting with Jays, first of all, good chance for him to kick on at a good level at the Championship. He obviously seemed to impress at Falkirk from what I saw and from what I read. Again, similar to Brian, similar for Brian, sorry. He's had 2 successful loan spells with Linlithgow Rose and Edinburgh City. He was absolutely loved there. And again, it'll be brilliant for him to test himself at Morton. It looks to me like he's going to be the number 1 there. So, you've got a goalkeeper going out who's going to start pretty much every week at a Championship club. So again, that can only be positive for Livingston. And fingers crossed it's a 3rd successful loan spell for Brian. And because we could have a really good young goalkeeper on our hands if he continues to progress and develop at the rate that he is. Again, I can only see those 2 as positive moves.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good move for both of them. They're obviously going and working with somebody that they've worked with before in Dougie Imrie. And I think that's the biggest positive about it, is that they're going somewhere where, the manager already knows what they're capable of and will give them that opportunity. I think it's a big season for Jays. Start of last year, he played a couple of the Betfred games and looked pretty sharp, and then had an injury which kept him out for kind of 3 months, and it was a case that he had to go out and get minutes, and he went to Falkirk, and as you say, by all accounts, did pretty well there. My downstairs neighbour's a Falkirk fan, and his wee laddie was raving about him, so I think that says everything. So yeah, it's a great move for both players, and hopefully, Brian in particular, and Brian's another one, a bit like Jack Hamilton, you're really willing Brian to do well. He's come over from America. He's coming here. He's not going to walk into our team coming from college, and he's going to have that 2-3 years of almost apprenticeship going and playing in the lower leagues. And I think it says a lot for the lad's attitude. And as
absolutely
a fan,
brilliant guy as well, Brian.
Yeah, and I'm really, really willing Brian to kick on at Livingston. And at some point, I'd love to see him as our number 1 goalie. But that's, he needs to have a successful spell at Morton, and I'm sure he'll come back next year and probably compete for that. But in terms of, I heard Davey had probably said that his business was finished, but he said, speaking to you last night, that a couple of things have come across his table which have interested him, and a couple of players have maybe said that they want to go and get more game time elsewhere. So I think there could still be a little bit of activity there, isn't there?
Again, I don't know specifics. I would think maybe you maybe see 1 or 2 go out on loan. I'm thinking potentially Harrison Clark. Obviously, we saw him off the bench last night, but he had a couple of loan spells last season at Arbroath and in Kelty Hearts, so I imagine he'd be one that will probably head out on loan. Again, he's another one that I'd quite like to see do well. In terms of incomings, maybe another wide player. I think Bahambula is potentially a wide player out on the left-hand side, or maybe as a number 10, but maybe another attacker, maybe another number 9 or a winger, somebody that can play across the front 3, as Davey likes to say. For me, then I think we'd maybe be all right. Maybe a centre-half, but again, that would just be for the time being. Obviously, the Premier League loan market will open now with it coming into July, so maybe that's what's coming up for Davey. Maybe that's what's flagged up, because obviously we're contract-wise a month ahead of England in terms of contracts will have expired the 31st of May, and in England it's the 1st of July. So maybe some players have been released down there that have come to Davey's attention. But for me, I'd definitely be happy with a couple of signings. Maybe one at the back on loan, with maybe Morgan and Tom Parks out injured at the moment, and then definitely another forward player for me.
Yeah, I think that the centre half one, I think we're covered. You've got Fitzy, Ayo, Tom Parks, Morgan, even Sean Kelly can go in there and play. You've got Philip Kinkar, so you've got 6 potentially that can go in and play centre half if required. And I think that I know a couple of them are out as of just now, but you're hoping that they won't be out much longer term. So I think adding another centre half might not be the best use of resources. I'd maybe like to see another wide player, but even then, I think you've got options there. You've got again, you've got Montano. Shinnie played off the left-hand side a lot tail end of last season. You've got Newbley, who, let's be honest, I think is more natural in a wide area as well. If you've got Bahambulla coming in, you've got Goncalves who can play across that as well. So you've still got options there. But I have a nagging feeling that we've not quite replaced the likes of Odin and Alan Forrest, but it remains to be seen. But I'm sure Davy will dip into the market again before the start of the season, and hopefully the new arrivals can hit the ground running when we play our Premier Sports Cup ties.
The Lions have been gearing up for the new season with a training camp in Murcia before some friendly action at the Tony Macaroni Arena. Safe to say it's been quite a mixed bag, Euan, from the friendlies we've seen anyway.
Yeah, I think Davey touched on it with yourself that he'd struggled to get friendlies organised. I think he had Kelty Hearts lined up, but then we drew them in the League Cup. I think he had Nottingham Forest as well coming up here to play, but again, because they got promoted to the Premier League down south, again that kind of changed their plans. And I think what he was saying to you is the company that organised the trip away kind of didn't really fulfil their bargain of getting a couple of games sorted, so they ended up playing a select team from Murcia, so which they won the game 3-0. So, but probably not ideally. Would have been hoping to try and give players a 90 minutes each, probably, rather than 20-30 minutes here and there. But yeah, mixed bag I think is the best way to describe it. The Morton game, you don't tend to see that many clangers in a season, never mind in one game, and you've not even kicked a ball, really competitive ball yet. I'll be controversial. I was reading some of the comments online in the forum. I don't think we played as badly as the scoreline suggests, to be honest. I think we played all right. I think we moved the ball okay. We got into some very good areas, just lacked that killer ball, really. We got in behind Morton countless times, and it was just a last-ditch block. Have to say Morton defended their box very well. Give credit to them. Touched on it since Dougie Imrie's gone in there. They've been very difficult to beat. They've been very well organised. So that's credit to the job that Dougie's done since he went in there at the turn of the year. But I mean, the first goal, how many times do you see these on like a soccer blooper reel or something like that? The ball's played back, and I think you showed us some of the video footage last night, Broonie, and it's Scott Pittman's reaction's probably the best one. I always played the ball back. I think there's fault on both sides. I think I was taught as a youngster, you try and not play a ball back to your goalkeeper between the posts, you try and play it either side. But then Max is also standing so far past his front post. I think it's probably made it a lot worse than it could have been as well. So I think there's fault on both sides for that one, and it wasn't an ideal start to your pre-season preparations. And as I say, I think we moved the ball quite well without really troubling Brian Schweik in goals. But I have to say, I think Brian had a pretty solid game, was very comfortable coming for crosses, was obviously looking out for him during the game, was hoping we forced him into action to see what he's really made of, because not had that great opportunity to watch a lot of his games. So yeah. So was looking to see that, but what he had to deal with, he dealt with very well. We got to see a look at the new boys. We mentioned Dylan Bahambulla, which is a TBC to be confirmed kind of situation with him. He looked quite lively out in the left hand side, very confident on the ball, looking to take his man on. But as you say, there was a bit of an issue up front. Bruce pulled out in the warm up, and then Jack Hamilton's came off probably 20 minutes in. And Ismail Goncalves has come on, clearly in need of minutes, but he needs a few more minutes in him to get him up to speed, as we've mentioned. But the two goals at the end are just typify the game, really. Max is pressed on the ball in the middle of his kind of 6 yard, between the 6 yard and 12 yard box. He sliced it with his left foot straight into the Morton forward, and I think Boyd McGarity is good finish. Tucked it away in the top corner, and you kind of go, right, that's game over. You've had two absolute clangers, and then funny, Andy sits next to me, obviously, used to do the podcast, and he left before the third. And I just sent him a message saying Max had done it again. With the throw, it's, to be honest, the throw's never on to Jacko, and it's gone straight to the Morton player, and again it's cut back and it's tucked away well by the boy McGarity. But I think it spoke volumes that Max wasn't even in the squad for the Lithgow Rose game. I think Max last year, granted, see, Max's good performances are fantastic. I described it last year. I think he was probably level par for games where he's made a mistake and it's cost us a goal, maybe cost us points, to games, very good games that he's had that have probably won his points, just straight off the top of the head. Celtic Park, the penalty save, and Dundee away at the start of the season was excellent, and and Ross County away as well, penalty save up there. So that, don't get me wrong, this isn't a dig at Max. I think he had some exceptional performances last year, but there was a lot of, for me, too many big mistakes in his game, and I think, to me, it spoke volumes that Davy dropped him from the squad. The other point is, with Konovalov coming in the door, obviously the situation that happened with Daniel Bardon, hopefully his recovery is going very well, but that meant for the first half of the season, pretty much all the season, because of the delay in getting Konovalov's paperwork through, that Max didn't have a genuine, competitor for his position. So these mistakes were going unpunished, in a sense that he wasn't getting taken out of the team and somebody else put in. So I think Konovalov coming in, from what we've seen so far, looks pretty competent. And, I wouldn't say we've had to see him a great deal in action as such in terms of his shot stopping, but from what we've seen so far, he's looked fairly solid. So I think, Ivan's got a good chance of starting at the weekend, in my opinion, after the performance Max had against Morton, and hopefully that gives Max a kick up the backside and gets him knuckling down and trying to prove the gaffer wrong. But as I say, I think it spoke volumes that the two players that made glaring errors in the game, in Ayo and Matt Stryjek, were taken out the team on Tuesday. I know it's pre-season, he's trying to give everyone minutes, but I think with those two, I think it was quite deliberate, to be honest.
Yeah, it was such a weird game, wasn't it? You've kind of summarised it well. Not really much more I can add, but yeah, it's just three comedic errors. I think you've got to laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, and you'll have us down with 4 points next season. So it's just a bit frustrating, obviously, because you want to do well in pre-season. You kind of want to set the standards early, and you want to get a couple of good results. Obviously, we followed that up with a 6-0 victory, but again, I don't know how much you can take from the level of opposition, being in Lithgow Rose. I think it was probably not a lose-lose type thing, because it's great to see us win and score a lot of goals, but again, it's probably expected of us. It was a good way to bounce back, though. Just obviously skipping past the Morton thing, as you kind of covered it well with the mistakes from Ayo and Max. Just not brilliant at all, is it? So that is a worry. But I think Ivan will probably be playing as maybe the number one, because I think he ended the season as number one. Davy certainly chucked him in for the last few games. So, it's going to be a battle, probably more like McCrory and Stryjek the season before, where you've got not two number ones as such, but two guys that can properly battle out with each other, as you touched on, that Max didn't really have for the first half of the season, obviously, in kind of tragic circumstances. But yeah, I thought we were very solid against Lithgow Rose. Again, as I say, not much you can really judge from the game, but I thought the likes of Kankar looked very decent. Jamie Brandon did quite well. Great to see James Penrice back on the pitch after a wee while on the sidelines. Obviously, Ismail Calve's got his goal. We've obviously touched on him a wee bit.
Cracking goal as well. Absolute cracker, to be fair. Which I think tells you everything we've mentioned with Goncalves. If he can get himself up to speed, I think Hearts fans described him. He's almost a bit of a maverick, and sometimes he can be unplayable, and then other times he's just right off it. So I think he's a bit of an enigma. Goncalves is the kind of vibe I've got off him. But again, you see he's got quality. Regardless of the opposition, it's a terrific finish. So you're hoping Davy can work his magic with him and get him up to speed, and maybe he'll be like a last 3 months Jet. And if we could get a last 3 months Jet out of Goncalves, then I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah, no, he's clearly got the ability. Good to see Christian Montano as well with a double. He hasn't, I don't think, scored a competitive goal yet. So it's a big season for him as well, for me. Obviously, we touched on Bailey and Forrest leaving. It's a good chance for Montano to kind of cement himself in the first team. His game time was probably limited last season as he adjusted to Scottish football, really. Obviously, you don't want a full season for somebody to adjust, but he's a frustrating one for me, because I think sometimes he shows flashes of quality and flashes of brilliance. Particularly, I think there was a game, Hibs at home, where he looked devastating on the counter, but other times he just looks a bit off it. But for me, he's one as well that I hope kicks on, because he's a great guy off the pitch as well. But and obviously Josh Mullen with the hat trick, again done. We touched on it a wee bit earlier, but he's done his chances of being involved for the cup games absolutely no harm. And again, he'll be wanting to kick on after kind of a drab loan spell at Hamilton. Obviously, I think he was played out of position there. Something that probably didn't go to plan in his head. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday. It's probably more of a chance to judge players, albeit it's a game we should be winning, I'm sure. I mean, we may as well go on to it now. Obviously, Albion Rovers away at Clifton Hill as we begin the League Cup group. It kind of has maybe a banana skin over it, but for me, it's one that doesn't worry me. I'm not sure about yourself, Euan.
Yeah, I mean, to quickly touch on what you were saying with Josh and his spell at Accies, as you mentioned, I spoke to the guys that do the Only Accies podcast, and they mentioned Josh had been playing centre mid most of the season, which anyone that has watched Josh in his career is, I think, the most old school winger you could possibly think of in terms of right hand side, likes to get balls whipped in. And for Josh, the manager knows him. I think him and Davy get on like a house on fire. I know Davy's mentioned that, Josh has said that, so I think it is. I don't think it's just smoke and mirrors. I think that's a genuine thing. They have a good relationship, and you know what you're getting with Josh. You know what you're getting. We've watched him enough over the years at Livingston, and then his spell he had at Ross County as well. You know what you're getting with him. A couple of things that we struggled with, set plays, for example, attacking wise. Josh's delivery is exceptional, and having that as a bit of a weapon again could prove beneficial for us this season, to be honest. I think it was maybe something we lost when Josh left the club last year, but obviously that was between Josh, the gaffer, and that was the decision that was made. But I'm looking forward to, hopefully he gets an opportunity in the team this year. But going on to his old club, Albion Rovers, as we mentioned, I have a bit of a checkered past with Clifton Hill in my experience of watching Livi there. I remember the first game after we got taken over when we got demoted down to the third division. And we lost 3-0. Bobby Barr ripped us to shreds that day. And I don't think anyone actually gave a toss about the result, to be brutally honest. They were just more glad they had a football team to watch. But I remember the next game there was Euan Moyes was making his debut, and he scored this incredible looping header into the top corner. Sadly, it was an own goal and the game finished 1-0. But so I've seen the games at Clifton Hill always tend to be really scrappy, really, really scrappy games. There's not a great deal of quality. I don't think the surface is the best at times at Clifton Hill. I think it's quite a dry, bobbly pitch almost all year round. Another game I actually remember there again, it was a cup tie. Danny Mullen had a penalty to win it in extra time, and I don't think the ball's landed yet. It's probably floating about in the sea somewhere. He hit it that. He actually managed to clear the massive wall behind one of the goals, which is a good 20 yards from the back of the goal, which is quite impressive, to be honest, from Danny. But yeah, as you say, it has banana skin vibes on it. But if you look at Albion Rovers for last year, I think Brian Reid's the manager there, who used to be manager at Ayr United. I don't know if he crossed paths with us on our way back up the divisions when we were demoted, when he was...
I think he was think he was Stranraer manager when they relegated us, I want to say.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, Albion Rovers finished 8th in League Two last year, I think 10 points above Cowdenbeath, who got relegated in the playoffs. And looking at their stats, they had the leakiest defence in the league with 58 goals conceded. I'd like to think we'll have quality, coming back pre-season, full-time team as well. I'd like to think we have the quality to dispatch Albion Rovers and hopefully get the group stage off a good start, certainly a better start than last year's.
Yeah, it's again, Davey touched on it last night, but it's a competition we've done well in.
Yeah.
Especially since the group stage has been brought in and we've been the Premiership team. I think qualified from 4 out of 4.
I don't think we failed to qualify. I think it was only the first year of the group stage that we failed to qualify from, which was when we were in League One. So I think every other year we've...
Yeah, St Mirren and Partick Thistle rings a bell from that year.
Yeah, I think we had Hamilton Accies, Edinburgh City, I remember us going to Meadowbank. So I think that's the only year we've not qualified out of a group, and we've made it to at least a minimum of the last 16. And as you mentioned, a couple of quarterfinals and a final along the way. So it's been a very good competition for us.
Yeah, it's for me, it's probably a little bit of a tougher group than last year, albeit we struggled last year, but I think that was pretty much all down to the banana skin at Alloa. That was a poor performance. I don't think, again, we could probably maybe put it down to COVID, but that maybe would have impacted Alloa, so that could be a cop out. But yeah, it was, I think we won at Brecon, got beat at Alloa, and we scraped by against Wraith Rovers, I think, on penalties.
Yeah,
and then I
beat Cowdenbeath 3-1, which got us through. Yeah, it was. Last year, I think it was a combination of the COVID issues we had, plus the massive turnover in the squad, and you're trying to gel players together as well. So I think there was a bit of reasoning behind. I mean, I remember speaking to Davey last year, and he was close to forfeiting the Alloa game because of the number of players that we had unavailable. So I think that tells you everything. It doesn't strike me that Davey would forfeit a game very easily. So last year was difficult, but I think the circumstances dictated that a lot. As you mentioned, this is a tricky group. I don't think we could have got a much tougher draw out of this. Obviously, Albion Rovers, we've mentioned the games at Clifton Hill, which makes it a little bit more of a banana skin than if it was at our place. But you've got Kelty Hearts, who won League Two, new manager in there as well, and John Potter. You've got Cove Rangers, again, new manager. I think it's Jim McIntyre that's in the door.
Yeah, won League One as well. League
One champions, and then you've got Cali Thistle, who have just got to the playoff final for getting promotion to the Premiership. So it's a tough group, but I think it's a very good test for us as well at the start of the season. And I think all 4 of the games will give you a decent assessment, I think, of where the team is at the moment. But what are we expecting then, Broonie, for Albion Rovers? Here's a score.
You want a prediction?
Hit me.
I'll go 3-1.
3-1.
3-1. I'd love a clean sheet. I think a clean sheet would be brilliant, and a few goals. But I'd just take the 3 points now, to be honest, and then we move on to Inverness. But what about yourself?
I'm gonna go 3-0. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to say 3-0 to Livi.
So no banana skins here then. So we'll be getting battered if we don't win.
Yeah, I know. That could come back to haunt me. But as you mentioned, Tuesday night with them back on home plastic in Inverness, make the trip down from the Highlands. As we mentioned already, it's a difficult game. That's a team that had a very good campaign last year. Just looking at, obviously, 3rd in the Championship behind Arbroath. 2nd best attack in the league, 3rd best defence in the league. So, again, pretty decent stats. The 2 real danger men you'll need to keep an eye out for, I think, are Shane Sutherland and Mackay. I think everyone knows about Mackay. He's been around Scottish football for years. They were the 2 top goal scorers for Inverness with 10 and 9 respectively. So I think those are the 2 players we'll probably need to keep an eye out for. But by all accounts, I think Inverness try to play a little bit under Billy Dodds. I think they try and play a brand of football. They had a very, very good start to last season. I think they won, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe their first 6 or 7 on the bounce. and then they had a real slump in form, which almost took them out the promotion picture just about, and I think they had quite a strong tail end to the season. But you saw in the playoff games, they've obviously got a bit of grit about them, especially the game at Gayfield, which you were at. They were down to 10 men, then down to 9 men, then down to 8 men, then back up to 9 men, then back up to 10 men, then down to 9 men again, and still managed to batter their way through at Gayfield and get through on penalties. So they're obviously a very resolute team, just even looking at those particular games. But again, I would have been more concerned about it if it was up at Inverness. I think personally, as much as everyone loves away day up to the Highlands, I'm quite glad that game's at Livi, because I think it has, up at Inverness, look at the cup game just before COVID that we had up there, and we lost out up at Inverness 1-0, didn't turn up that day. So it just shows you that particular ground does have, Inverness seem to be a bit of a cup team. I always associate Inverness with doing okay in cup competitions as well. So they'll be a dangerous opponent, but I still think we'll have enough quality to see them off personally, especially if we get another decent 90 minutes under our belt against Albion Rovers.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Just touching a wee bit on Inverness, I saw that, I think it was yesterday, they absolutely hammered St Johnstone. Again, I know it's a pre-season friendly. I'm not going to read too much into it. I don't think they'll be reading a lot, if anything, into our 3-0 defeat against Morton, for example, because it's not a 3-0 game. But again, just going off the score, I think it was 5-1 at half-time to Inverness as well, against a fairly strong St Johnstone side. But again, it's hard to tell at this stage of the season. But, obviously, they aren't shy of putting the ball in the back of the net, sticking 6 past a Premiership team there. So could be a tough game, but, I'd expect us to win this one at home. But I think I'll maybe go for a stuffy 2-1. Stuffy 2-1. I'm going to absolutely copy you. I fancy Inverness to probably get a goal. As we just kind of touched on, they were one of the best kind of attacking teams in the Championship last year with their stats, and you've mentioned they're sticking big numbers, albeit pre-season, but sticking big numbers past a St Johnstone team who are renowned for being very stuffy. So I think they'll certainly cause us problems, but I fancy us to do enough on the night. I'm going to go 2-1 as well, but hopefully we're right, Bruni. Hopefully it's 6 points from our opening 2, and we're well on way to reaching the last 16 of the League Cup once again. They also stuck 10 past Clacknacuddon, which it was dubbed as a Clacknascuddon, apparently. So I was a big fan of that. So we're now finishing Talk Livi in general. That's not my pattern. That's lifted from Twitter, and it's outstanding. I approve of it. Oh dear, Jesus Christ! Right, we'll end that segment on that, because I don't think you can say much more after Clacknascuddon. Let's be honest, guys. I hope we give that to Inverness. So that's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks very much to everyone for tuning in, week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply give us a message on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram. As Bruni said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Search Talk Livi to find us, and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years. That's it for us for this week. Thanks very much to all our listeners again for tuning in. And let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team and another successful cup run. And a Clacknascuddon out of Inverness.
Livingston, we love it when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Arminville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realise our vision. Livingston.